Super happy to be here. DevCon is one of my favorite events of the whole year. So being here with you, sharing all this cool stuff that we are doing in so many different products, so many different areas, it's really exciting. Today we're going to talk about DXP Cloud. We're going to go on a deep dive into the product, understand the functionalities and how it can help on your business. So going to the cloud is not easy, right? There's so many things that we have to take care of. We want to do a successful project and we want to launch and be extremely good in the cloud, but that's not the case. Sometimes we launch a new project and it's just going everything well. We're like, okay, this is perfect. We plan everything well and now we're just going to make it. Then in the middle, things might go a little bit wrong, but you keep the confidence high and you just go forward, you know? But things just start to fall apart and eventually it doesn't work out, right? So we don't want that to happen with your projects. And it's much more common than you may think. There's a research from Liferay that they say that 62% of the cloud migration projects fail. And that's a pretty high number if you think about it. It's like, it's huge. How come like so many projects are failing? And that same research, they pointed out different reasons for why that happens. We need to understand like what are all the variables that makes moving to the cloud so difficult. So we're going to go into different use cases and different challenges that you may be facing right now and other companies face too. So let's see how it works. We're going to look at many of those, so just stay here with me. First one is about having a solid business case. So for this, I want you to imagine a beer retailer, okay? So imagine that we all work at this company, and because we're here in Germany, let's say it's a beer retailer. We're gonna call this company Liferay, okay? We all work there, so that's important. We do all sorts of beers. We have lagers, we have pale ales, we have everything that you can imagine. And we have more than 3,000 employees. It's a big company. We're all around the world. We have employees all spread around the globe. And this is our leadership team. Also, we need to understand like who are these people, right? We have first our CIO. We have Heidi, our CMO. And we have Manuel, our CEO. Okay, this is our team. And they have lots of different agendas. Each one of those departments, they have different objectives, but at the end of the day, they want to succeed in the cloud. So this team wants to sell beer all over the world. We need to connect that audience, like that leadership team, all those employees with our customers. So Liferay have plenty of systems to accomplish that. We have a partner portal that we use to communicate with our partners. We have a public site where we display all the information about our organization, our mission, our values. And we have an intranet where all those 3,000 employees, all of us that work together in this company, we go there to talk to each other. So there are many different solutions that we need, and we decided that we're going to use Liferay DXP to solve those problems. The thing is, Liferay today runs on-premise. Everything is stored on a server at their office. There are many challenges that we have today. First one, time to market. You know, you have all these departments. We have our CMO, our CEO, pushing our CIO to deliver new features and improve the systems, but they have so many different agendas, different deadlines that they need to meet. So it's really tricky, but they need to go to market. They need to be faster, productive, and launch the campaigns and everything they need to do on time. There's also a lot of hidden costs. Usually when we think about on-premise, it's easy to just say, okay, we have the servers there, let's just put them on and that's okay. But it's really challenges, much more deeper than that. There's all sorts of hidden costs like electricity, AC, we have personnel that we need to maintain. Maybe everything's fine right now, but a year and a half later, half of the team leaves, and what you're going to do now, you have to retrain them, you don't understand what's really going on there, so it's really challenging. And the next one is compliance. We are a global company, so how we're going to make sure that every single thing that we do is compliant in every different region that we serve our customers. So for Liferay, it's not about hype. Moving to the cloud is not about hype. It's about ROI. For them, it makes sense to move to the cloud. It's a safe decision. So let's say, okay, we're not going to use on-premise anymore. We're going to go to the cloud. So now the next question is, what provider should I use? There's so many providers. We have AWS, we have Heroku, we have Google Cloud, we have Azure. So many different options, and they are all different from each other. So the next challenge is understanding what are the different cloud providers. And thinking that they are all the same is a problem that we see a lot in the industry. There are many different categories that you can put these different providers. There's like infrastructure as a service, we have platform as a service, and there's software as a service. They all serve different needs, you know. Infrastructure as a service, they are really concerned about, okay, you're gonna put your servers and you're not gonna worry about configuring everything and it's gonna be ready for you. Whereas software as a service goes to the other extreme, whereas like everything is super easy to set up, but you have all these constraints, and now you don't have that same flexibility that you have with infrastructure as a service. One is not necessarily better than the other, but for B-Array, we are going to look into those different options. We know that we want to go to the cloud. We look at all these different options, and we found that platform as a service is the best for us. It offers all the flexibility that SaaS typically offers, and that infrastructure as a service typically offer, with the high productivity tools that SaaS offers. So, okay, we're going to use that, and we decided that DXP Cloud is the best solution. After looking at all the different options, DXP Cloud is the best one. Okay, why B-Array is going to choose DXP Cloud? There's so many others. Why is that? First, just because of the platform itself, right? It's a product that helps you be more productive. So as developers, that's what we need, right? We need to deliver solutions fast. So having that productivity and that flexibility is important. Next is about the expertise. At Liferay, we have been working with tons of companies from all over the place, and we have been helping them with our GS team to deploy Liferay portals for a very long time. So we know what we are doing. We know all the challenges that comes with deploying Liferay. And the other one is because it's a one-stop shop, right? You have DXP as the solution that you're going to use at the end of the day, and you need something on the cloud, so having this integrated product is the best thing. So that's what B-Array decided to do, and now we're going to use DXP Cloud. Great. Now, as soon as they got the project on their hands, this is what they're going to look like. There's a series of environments that we have. We have a dev environment, we have a disaster recovery, DR, we have a production, we have a UAT environment, and look how they are all in different regions. We have non-production and production environments, so different types, and we have different collaborators on each environment. One environment can run in Oregon, US, and another one can run in Brazil, for example, or it can run in Frankfurt, can run in London. We have many different regions, Australia, and all that. So this is super cool, because if I have business folks, for example, that are allocated in Germany, now I can have one environment, my UAT, that is closer to that region, so they're going to have a better performance on that region. Okay, now that we know that cloud providers are not all the same, and that DXP Cloud has that flexibility, let's see how we're going to kick off our project. We have to decide the technology stack. We have DXP, it's amazing. 7.2 is the best version we have ever done. Now, how am I going to take this generic product and transform into my B-Array application? Now I need to start customizing it. So for that, I have to make tons of different decisions. I need to think about the operational system. If I'm going to use Ubuntu, if I'm going to use Fedora, CentOS OS, like so many different options. I have to choose my database. Am I going to use Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, so many others. My app server, I'm going to use Tomcat or something else. For the web server, I'm going to use Nginx or Apache, like which one should I choose? And for the search layer, I need to think if I'm going to use Solr or Elasticsearch. Now that I'm going to use Elasticsearch, I have to think about Kibana, Logstash, everything that comes along with that decision. And I have to set all that thing, you know? And for each one of those pieces that you're choosing, there's a lot of work that comes with that. You have to maintain that software, you have to patch, update to the new versions. If there's a security breach, you have to update it. So it's a lot to take in your hands. It's not just one software. There's a whole stack of technologies that come along with that. So with DXP Cloud, we put together the whole stack, and we offer that for you already connected out of the box. So we have DXP, of course, and we have Nginx as the web server, we have MySQL as the database, and we have Elasticsearch as our search layer. This is how it looks like when you are setting up a new service on DXP Cloud. You can define how much CPU you want to allocate, in this case, 8 CPU cores. I can define how much memory I want to allocate, like 8 gigs. If I'm deploying, I can check what are the dependencies that my deployment is going to follow. I can even just add any environment variables. In this case, we have one to enable clustering. So all the work that you need to do to enable cluster on DXP Cloud, you just put, it's a Boolean, true or false, and that's it. And I can define where I'm going to do my file storage and persist my data. In this case, we're choosing the document library path to persist my data. Now, let's look at connecting all those pieces together. We know what we're going to run. We know where the platform that we're going to use. Let's connect all those pieces. I have my DXP. I have all these services, how I'm going to put them in the cloud in a secure way. So the way this works on DXP Cloud is that we have a load balancer in front of everything, and all the traffic comes through that load balancer. Then it arrives at the web server that distributes to DXP, and DXP talks to other services too, like the database and Elasticsearch. The good thing is that this is all isolated in a private network. So all these services are isolated from the outside world. They talk to each other using the host name, so every connection and every connection that is made inside this private network is using the host name. And when we are finally ready to move the traffic to the cloud, we have two different load balancers. We have a load balancer level 3 and 4, which is really helpful to define the multiple ports. You can define if you want to open a port that is TCP or UDP, and even if it's externally available or not. This is how it looks on the code. You have the ports property. You define the internal port, the external port, UDP, TCP, the protocol that you want to use, and so forth. And we have a load balancer level 7 that you can define. You get a dedicated IP out of the box. You can add custom domains, and you can add your own SSL certificate. On this case, I have my load balancer. I'm adding the port 80, and I'm putting this beerray.com custom domain. And then I can put my custom SSL certificate as well. So everything's really straightforward, and you can go to the network tab in this case, and we can look at our project. In this one screen, I can see all the ports that are openly available, the ones that are not, that are forbidden, what is the host name that I'm using inside, what are the ports that I'm opening or not. So it's really good. Next up is establishing a new operating model. We know that going to the cloud is amazing, but it's not only changing like, okay, now I have everything that I'm running locally and I'm putting in the cloud and I'm not changing anything else. You actually have to rethink your whole strategy. It's not just about moving from one place to the other. So there's so many companies that they have a really good strategy for DevOps. They are really mature on their DevOps cycle. There are others that aren't. In this case, Beerray is not very mature. So with DXP Cloud, we already give you this set of tools and a structured software development lifecycle to follow. In this page, I can see all the deployments that are happening on each one of my environments. I can see who made a deployment, in what environment, what was the last code that was deployed, what are the services that they did, what exactly was the change that they made, and I can see that for each one of the environments. I can also look at moving my code through that whole cycle. And we have this concept of you write once and you deploy anywhere. So your code lives on a Git repository. In this case, it's on GitHub, but it can be on GitLab or Bitbucket and so forth. From GitHub, we send the code with a webhook that is already configured to Jenkins, and then Jenkins builds that and sends to DXP Cloud. So once it's on DXP Cloud, now you can just move everywhere. So let's take a look here. I have this build number 2, and I want to move that build to production. I want to deploy this. So I can just select that, and now I'm going to deploy in production, and you can see that after the deployment is done, all my services are up, and my application is online. So you can get the same build, for example, number 2 or 3 or 5, and you're moving that from development to UAT to production. So there's no more that feeling of, oh, it works on my machine, or it's working on UAT but not in production, because now you're moving this one artifact between different environments. Next up is about failing to test properly. That's another challenge that the research told that it was preventing projects from moving to the cloud successfully. For us, it's very easy, like testing, it's something that you don't have to advocate for that as much nowadays. Everybody tests their code. There's different strategies for testing, unit tests, integration tests, functional tests. But what I really love about this quote that says that having automated tests but no continuous integration is like having a sword but letting it rot. And that's totally true. Like, what's the purpose of having a whole suite of tests, but if they are not reliable, you're not going to run it, so it's not deeply integrated into your culture, you're going to see problems when you go to production. So having a really structured CI strategy is also a big part of a successful project. For B-Array, we're going to use GitHub, and Jenkins as well. So with Jenkins, what is interesting is that it already comes with Blue Ocean. The Jenkins pipeline is already there, so you don't have to configure anything, and it's already integrated to GitHub. Let's take a look. Here's the repository that you get right away, and this is the Jenkins pipeline that we have. So it has all the steps already to send to DXP Cloud and run the tests. And this is the webhook that whenever you do a new push or a new pull request or just push a new branch, we're going to run the whole pipeline once you do that. So let's just log into our Jenkins and see how this works in practice. I'm going to go to my project. I can see all the builds. I can see all the steps that we did. If I want to add a new step, like I want to integrate SonarQube for static analysis, or I want to run my functional tests to make sure my portal is okay and we're not going to break for the users, you can just add new pipelines and run that before it sends to DXP Cloud. Cool. That's great. Everything is okay, but what if there's a problem, right? Sometimes things go wrong and we need to be ready for that. So it's really important to have a DR, a disaster recovery strategy. With DXP Cloud, we have 2 different strategies. We have the intra-region strategy, where this is out of the box, you don't have to do anything. And every single region that we have is already replicated in 3 different availability zones. So let's say a building gets on fire, and we're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen now? You don't have to worry about anything because we already replicate your same project in different availability zones, and you don't need to worry about that. Like, everything's going to be online. So in order for that to happen, what we use is the self-healing capabilities of DXP Cloud. Every one of the services have self-healing, and you can configure that yourself. We have liveness probe and readiness probe. Those are 2 concepts that we use in order to check if the portal is up. One thing is checking if the portal is alive, right? We are starting the portal. But checking if the portal is ready to receive requests is another thing, because now we have to wait until all the startup time takes place. So here's how it looks. I can define one particular URL. For example, I'm checking the C portal layout because it's a URL that is public and I don't need access to it. I'm putting a port, and I'm specifying the initial delay in seconds, the period in seconds that I'm going to wait until I check. And I'm setting up the success thresholds that I want to check. Like, okay, I'm checking 1 time, 2 times, 3 times before I can tell that it's ready to be served. And we have cross-region disaster recovery. So this is for extreme cases where there's a real extreme disaster. Let's say the whole West Coast, there's like an earthquake and now everything's destroyed. You still want to have your data, right? You don't want to just, now you're out of business because you didn't had a good backup strategy. So what happens if this whole region goes down, all the 3 availability zones? So you can have another environment in another region. In this case, I've just put it Brazil, but it can be Germany, it can be Frankfurt, it can be London, or any other region. So how this works is that you have the list of backups that I'm going to show in a bit how they work, And you can choose a backup and just restore to another environment at any time. That's pretty powerful. Next up is monitoring. We know that having our application online and everything is good, you're serving users and it's all perfect, but there are times that there's a problem and now you have to check what's going on. Maybe you deployed a code that is slower than you thought, maybe there's something else that you need to discover. So we have monitoring in place, and you can see for every single service that you have the logs, and you can analyze everything that is going on. You can filter by service, you can filter by build logs or application logs. You can even download the logs if you want. You don't want to examine on this UI? That's fine, no worries. Just download the logs, use the tool you need. You can grab and do whatever you want. And we have CPU, memory, and transfer monitoring. So let's go to the monitoring menu. We can take a look here and see all the different services that I have. I can choose Elasticsearch. I can filter by my CPU. I can see that I'm using 5 gigs from my 8 gigs that I allocated for memory. I can see the transfer in and out, filter by date, last 24 hours, last 30 days, last 5 minutes, and all that. But sometimes just looking at the memory, looking at the CPU is not enough, and that's totally fine. So if you want to go deeper, you can use Dynatrace, which is something that comes with every DXP Cloud subscription. So you can just click on that option, and you go to your Dynatrace dashboard. On Dynatrace, you can go much deeper. You can analyze the JVM, see how it's running, and if there's any problems, you can troubleshoot using Dynatrace. Here I can see how is the latency of my requests in different regions. I can see for different transactions inside my Liferay, how much they are taking. If there's one that is really slow, I can go deep into that one and change things and make a more robust code. The other piece is security, right? Such a crucial piece when we're talking about cloud. With DXP Cloud, we are ISO 27K and SOC 2 compliant, so it's a process that was really long and we had to change many things in order to get those certificates, but we are there now. So BRA doesn't have to worry about compliance anymore because all those things are in place. But they still have tons of people on their team, and those people, they need different access to those different environments. There's one person that needs to be accessing the dev environment, but not the production. There's one that needs access to the UAT, but not dev. And there's all sorts of different business use cases. DXP Cloud can help with that too. Speaking about authorization, like how we're going to get those users in, we have single sign-on that is already enabled. So for BRA, let's say we have a SAML server. So I can configure my SAML server to point to DXP Cloud. In this case, I'm just going to use the Liferay one because I have an account at liferay.com, and I'm configuring to authenticate on DXP Cloud using that. So that's great. Now I'm inside, and that's awesome. Next up is my team, right? We talked about the different roles that we need to have. So on my team, I can go there and see every single person that is invited on my environment. I can add another one. They have different roles that I can choose. They can be an administrator, a contributor, or a guest. I can invite them, remove their invitation if I want, and remove them from a particular environment. So each role has a different definition. Admins have full control. Guests, they're more read-only. And contributor, it's on the middle. They can do a lot of things, but they have some limitations. Next up is activities, right? It's good that we have a team that is working and it's on the cloud. That's perfect. But what if they mess up? What if we have to do an audit to discover that there's one person that made a change that caused something? There was a problem. Now, with activities, you can go into there and you can see, okay, what's going on inside my project? You can check everything that happened. You can see who did it, what was done, when was done. So now you can really go deep and understand everything that is happening in your project. It's no longer that black box that you have to figure out and talk to different people, and hopefully you find like who did what change, what and whatnot. Also, moving everything at once is a big challenge when you talk about going to the cloud. With DXP Cloud, we have VPN, and with VPN, you can use a hybrid cloud approach, where you can have a server that is running on-premise, but you still talk to your DXP Cloud server. So let's say BRA, we have an ERP and HR system, and we need to talk to DXP Cloud. How are we going to do that? Well, we can go to settings, and we can choose the VPN type that we want to connect. We support OpenVPN and IPsec. I can define my server address, my user, my login for that. And inside my server, I can define the forward IP that I want to access. So I can tell, okay, what is the IP, what is the port, and what do I want to map inside DXP Cloud? So the cool thing about this is that now, instead of accessing that as a different server, you can actually use that system inside your DXP Cloud project. So we do that by doing the forward porting strategy. So imagine each one of those servers that have different IPs with different ports that we need to access. I can actually map one to the other, and now I can access that server using a local host name with a local port. So it's much easier for you to manage the traffic, and it's all inside that private network too. Okay, that's awesome. What's the next challenge? Having a reliable backup. We know how important data is for every single company. It's the most important access. Data is the new oil, so how we're going to protect our data? With DXP Cloud, we have backups that are already built in the product. Oops. Let's go back there real quick. Okay. So I can go to my backups page. I can set up the backup frequency. I can tell that it's going to run every 12 hours, every hour, every day. And I can just click and run a manual backup anytime that I want. If I just want to run a backup now, I just click there, and it generates a backup. It all looks very simple. You're just clicking a button, and that's it. But there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. What we do is we create a copy of your document library. We make a dump of your database at the same timestamp. It needs to be exactly at the same time. Then we upload both to the cloud, and from there, we store the backup. So now we have a reliable backup that we can restore at any time. But we're not running manual backups all the time, right? I want manual and automatic backups too. So we can run that same process and just define a cron job that is going to create new backups every 12 hours, every hour. So it's really important that we have data integrity and there's no corruption. That's what we are aiming for with backups, and that's what we're able to accomplish. After you have that backup, you need to be able to restore that. So on DXP Cloud, you can choose one of the backups, click Restore, select the environment, and restore it. So you can say, okay, now we're going to get the backup from production into my UNT environment because I want my teams to start developing a new feature. You can also set up scripts to sanitize the data in case you want to just anonymize certain pieces of the data and things like this. The way this works behind the scenes is that we stop both Liferay and the database. We prevent both from writing, and then we download the backup, and then we restart those applications using that backup. And the last one is about being ready for the unexpected. We know that our application may be running fine and it's all good, our CPU is good, our memory is good, but then there's an unexpected event and now everything's on fire, right? We don't want our website to go down. We want to stay up and we want to stay performant. So how can we do that? Well, you can use our auto-scaling features to accomplish this. So let's imagine a scenario here where Black Friday is coming up and BRA needs to be ready for this. On the on-premise world, we have tons of servers and we'll just buy another one, buy another one, buy another one, and now we have room to handle that traffic. But maybe there's more traffic than I expected. Maybe there was another case that I didn't prevent. And now I have all these servers that are running that I'm actually not using anymore. So the good thing with cloud is that you can just auto-scale, and now you have everything there. So auto-scaling is good because it keeps things safe, and it's also efficient. You're not using for a very long time, and now you're not using anymore. So, and you only pay for what you use, which is also great. So here I have my Liferay service, and I can go to scale, and I can choose that option, and I can enable auto-scaling. So just one click, I enabled auto-scaling. And if I have a lot of traffic, now there's a new instance that goes up after there's a lot of traffic coming up. So in this case, now I have 2 instances on my cluster instead of 1. Speaking about clustering, we have that already configured for you. So the way this works is if you're using 7.1 or 7.0, we use JDBC ping as the discovery method. And what it does is pretty much saves a record in the database, and that's how we discovered that there's another instance in the cluster. For 7.2, we have a different discovery method using DNS ping. It's actually faster than the JDBC ping. And we use Kubernetes, which is the tool that we use behind the scenes to orchestrate all the containers to make that discovery method. That's for DXP for 7.2. So if I have my cluster, my 3 instances running, there's another challenge now. Let's say I'm using commerce, and I have like different users coming to different instances of my cluster, right? Let's say now that I put a product on my shopping cart, and I need to spin up a new instance, right? You don't want your customer to just lose the session, and now they lost what they had on their session. So we have a load balancer with sticky session that we actually move the traffic to that other instance so you don't lose your customer, and we are smart about where we are moving the customer to. So there's a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, this is what we want, right? We want our CIO at BRA to be happy because now IT can deliver with confidence. We want sales to be happy because now they can move and evolve faster. And we want business to be happy because now they can focus on what matters. BRA is a company that makes beers, right? That's what they know best. They don't know software as much. So with this product, they can focus on what matters. So we know we're talking about a fictional case here, but there are many real customers that are using DXP Cloud now, like Vodafone here in Europe. We have Gympass, we have Positiva Insurance Company. In Colombia, we have Correos Chile, and many other logos. Some we cannot show, some we can show. And we're now growing all over the place with customers all over the place. And this is really just the beginning, you know. If you want to know more about DXP Cloud, we have 3 sessions that are really interesting. We have Thiago's workshop today that we're going to see how a migration from on-premise to cloud looks like on DXP Cloud, like firsthand. There's a session from Ryan Schuler. This one is super amazing because it's going to talk about a real use case of Liferay.com and how they moved to 7.2 and to DXP Cloud at the same time. It was a really nice project. And there's another one from Johnny tomorrow that is going to talk about information security and the information programs that we have today. So visit our booth if you have any other questions. And I was really inspired this morning with Brian's keynote because it talked about the last 15 years at Liferay. And it's really amazing. I've been at the company for a long time, so I've seen a lot of transformations. But what we're doing here, it's really for the next 15 years. We are really investing a lot in this new product. We're super excited, and we want to share that experience with you and that journey with you. So thank you so much, and that's it. Thank you.